My lords, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to episode number 31 of the Transport Fever 2 series. Now we're starting this episode at the freight yard that was set up at Westbank in our previous episode. So this is where we're going to be focusing our attention for the next few episodes, trying to get some of the raw materials down here and then some of the cargo that gets produced shipped out around British Columbia to the various towns that require it, so they can start to grow and expand. Now, before we actually press on with business today, I just want to say to those new subscribers who have joined over the last few days, welcome along. Glad to have you with us as part of our growing community. It's always pleasing to see new people subscribing to follow along, so thank you very much for your support. It is greatly appreciated, and I hope you enjoy being here with us and following along as we continue here on Transport Fever 2, or indeed on RimWorld if that's what you're here for. But for today, let's crack on, shall we, with our plans. First thing I'm going to do is just get rid of the expenditure numbers that keep popping up, and we'll decide where we're heading next. So we've got the cargo exchange yard all set up, and it's already been serviced by two steel trains that run down here from Chase, and then the steel that gets dropped off is being hauled over to the machinery factory in Kelowna, just across the Okanagan Lake there. However, the machines aren't being produced yet because we also require timber to be delivered down here as well. Now, just to the north in British Columbia, we do have a sawmill, and that's just to the north of Sycamus. And we also have a logging camp just here outside Seymour Arm. So for me, I think the next logical step is going to be to start bringing down logs into the sawmill, and then taking the timber on the freight line down into Westbank. And then, like we did with the steel, it would be a small shunting service to take the timber down to the machinery factory. In the meantime, we've unlocked the Schneider PB2. Let's just have a quick look at that. I think that's a bus. Let's see here, shall we? So if we go to manage vehicle and replace all passenger, indeed it is a Schneider. So at the moment we are using the Mack bus. The Schneider is faster, it has the same capacity, but it does have a little bit more power in terms of kilowatts. So any hills that we have in and around our cities, the Schneider will be able to tackle those hills with less effort, so there should be less slowdown. The increased power should also mean increased acceleration off the mark as well. So I think overall it's well worth swapping all the Macks out for the Schneider buses now. Now we'll do that before we do anything else. It shouldn't take too long. Fortunately, all our bus lines will be clumped together because of the naming system. So it's just a matter of selecting them all. And then once we've got them all selected, we're going to do a mass swap from the Mack to the Schneider. Right, so I've now selected all the bus services. That's 169 buses in total. So to swap them all for the Schneider PB2, it's going to cost us 16 million. That's not a problem, so let's go ahead and do that now. And that's our bus fleet upgraded across the board. And we can have a quick look at the Schneiders here. We have one just coming into one of our stations here in Armstrong. Quite a nice looking bus, very retro. And there we are then, so that's that little job taken care of. So let's return to our original plans for today, which is to start hauling these logs down to the sawmill and then the planks down into Westbank. So we do have a train line here. This is the iron ore train line. It's not frequently used, so we're not going to overburden it by having a train station out here and connected into this line. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's get ourselves a cargo station. I will go for a pass-through station. May not need to ever pass through here, but just on the off chance that we do, it's all then ready for us in the future and if we don't need it to be a pass-through station, then so be it. So there's the station put down. Connecting in should be relatively straightforward and easy from here. However, as we can see from this point of view, the iron ore train line here is rather elevated when we compare it to the tracks we've just put in place. So rather than rising straight up to meet it, I believe we'll run parallel for a while before snapping in at an ideal location. There we go, so that's almost snapped properly there. Now we have. And I think just before where the line meets the highway here is where we'll put a junction over like so. And that's relatively high speed junction as well, which is good. And we now have a double slip switch, so going in and out, this junction can be used as is. We will put some signals here and on this side as well. And then we'll have a clearing signal for the iron ore trains there. And then we'll have a clearing signal for the outbound trains there. Now the fact this track shimmies before curving back in doesn't sit too comfortably with me, so I'm just going to rework that just a fraction and try and get it in one smooth motion if we can. Let's see. That looks better. Might still be a slight shimmy in there, I can't quite tell, but it's less pronounced than it was previously. What we'll also have in place, and I think we'll put it just after the level crossing here, is a little parking bay, so to speak, so a little section of dual track just down here. That way, if we're having 2 or more trains running from the logging camp, then they can wait in this section of track rather than blocking up the main line, so they shouldn't then hold up our iron ore trains. So we'll put a signal there. We're going to want one here as well, and that should do us quite nicely. Just quickly rename this to Seymour Logging Camp. There's no need to capitalise the A, so let's change that. Right, so on this line they do have access all the way down to Westbank, because they will come down this way, pass through Armstrong, and then they will come this way and then use the little tunnel that we put in the last episode, and then they can head into Westbank. Now I have ever so slightly adjusted this tunnel because it had a weird effect where there were 2 entrances overlapping rather than a double track entrance, so it looks a lot better now than it did previously. Not sure if anybody noticed that in the last episode. I didn't until I started recording today, so took a few minutes, but it's all sorted now. So the logging trains actually don't need to go to Westbank, so all that was largely irrelevant. They need to come here, don't they? There's no need to take logs down there. So the next thing we want to have is a station around here, and I think we'll put it just alongside this road just here. I'm not sure if that's going to give us connectivity to both those industries, but I do think we'll be able to give ourselves a connection with some road manipulation. So what we'll do, we'll run a road just along the back, making sure it does have the active connection, and then in like that, and that gives us a connection to the sawmill, which is great. And then if we do something similar to the construction materials plant here, so a little access road. Now that might not give us connection yet, no, because it's classing it as too far away. However, if we do that, that should provide the connection, yes. So now both industries are directly connected to the station, so there's no need to have any trucks acting as an intermediate delivery service. So what we'll do here is we shall take this track this way. We'll double track this whole section, I think. And we want to head towards the iron ore line. Just about here. So let's just get these to snap parallel and then we'll merge them into our existing line. So they're not snapping yet, but they should do in a moment. Okay, so now we are running parallel. So we'll have a little section of quad track down here. And then it's just a case of, after this set of signals here, we'll start to think about merging the 4 lines into 2. Just like that. Where's the snap point? There it is. Excellent, and the junctions are nice and tidy as well. So we're going to have to put some extra signal work in around here now, just to keep everything flowing as smoothly as we can. That can serve as a clearing signal, as will that. And then we'll just go ahead, add a few extra signals along the way, just to increase our blocks down here. Do we have a set? No, we don't have a set before the tunnel for the iron ore line, so we'll do that. And then we want a couple of blocks down here as well. And before we get to the station, we will want a diamond switch in just prior to the station access. So let's put that in now. Speed doesn't really matter at this point. There we go. So now the logs can be hauled to the sawmill, and then we need to take this stretch of track out and find a nice tidy way to connect it in to our main line. So I think what we'll do is we'll curve ever so slightly left, because we don't want to plough straight in towards the town of Sycamus. Okay, this is... Okay, no, we look like we could be okay. It's going to be quite steep. Well, it's not too bad. It's only the medium increase gradient, so that's not overly terrible. And then we'll do the same thing if we have room before the station. Oh no, we probably don't. I guess I was going to say we'll do the same thing and have a quad track stretch, but I don't think we're going to have the space to do that. So instead we're going to have to go straight in. That's a nice junction now. And then get the snap point there, connect that in. And that should work very nicely. So let's get some signal work put down here as well. So one there to protect the junction and then a clearing signal. Go ahead and swallow my pride, so to speak, and put a few inside the tunnel. Swallow my pride is not the right term for that at all, but it is rather late in the evening, so you will have to bear with my faux pas. And then we'll have a final block there, and then once again we're going to want a diamond here. Perfect. And that means we should now be able to have a full line straight down to Westbank. So let's just quickly rename this from Sycamus West to Sycamus... No, in fact we will keep it as Sycamus West. Yes, why not? So now we can set up the haulage lines. So we're going from a logging camp, and this will be a shade of brown, into Sycamus West and then back. Fully loaded, 60 seconds, carrying only logs. There we go. And this will be the logging freight, and this is Seymour to Sycamus. So we can get a train ordered up for that, and we can use this depot out here. So let's decide what loco we want to run this line. I'm going to say the 442 Atlantic for this. So we want cargo, and then we want the flat car with side stakes. About 144 capacity should be enough. Speed is not too bad. 2 trains, 18 million. So let's go to where we can see the line. There we go. And now we can set up the second line, which is going to be from Sycamus West down into Westbank, carrying the planks. There we go. Its colour is sort of like that, I guess. So we are fully loaded, 60 seconds, carrying planks. And then you're not loading anything at Westbank for the time being. That's the lumber freight line from Sycamus to Westbank. Now we shan't get the train yet because there'll not be any production of planks. Because as far as this station is concerned, the one at Westbank, there's no demand for planks to be delivered down here yet. So what we need to do is set up another road delivery line to there. Go for the same sort of colour we're using for the train line. Let's see what platforms we're going for here. Yes, I will accept that. Fully loaded, and this is only 30 seconds because it's a road line and you're loading the planks, but you're not bringing anything back at the moment. And that's a lumber haulage line for Westbank. So let's get some cargo vehicles purchased. You can have the Benz trucks, and you can have 8 of those. So we'll put them on the line. They will be running empty for a short while, but that's not a problem. And now we can purchase a train for the logging freight line. Sorry, for the lumber freight line. That's not what I want to do at all. So buy a vehicle. Let's go for the Mikado. This is covering a far greater distance. And you want the flat car once again. And shall we say 144? In fact, let's go a little bit higher. Let's go for 180. And again, 2 trains should be sufficient for this for our starting point. So assign them onto their new line, and away they head. So hopefully our logging trains are on their way. Perhaps not yet. Doesn't look like it. But they will be very soon. In fact, there goes the first one now. We should start seeing production of logs up here. Yes, we have. And there will be a demand for these planks now, because we have the road delivery line set up as well. Now, owing to the fact we already have a station over here in Westbank, I think it's probably a decent idea to start shipping some food down here, because we have a connection, and both of the towns in this area require food. So let's go ahead and do that. We have food being produced. We also have a healthy grain store at the food processing plant. So let's go from Chase on the cargo side down to Westbank, hauling the food. Usual sort of setup here. We've all seen it now, plenty of time, so there's no need to explain it anymore, I am sure. There we go. So that's the food freight line from Chase to Westbank. Again, we're not going to purchase the train at this point, simply because there's no demand for the food in this catchment area. What we're going to want to do is set up a delivery line both into Kelowna and into Westbank. Now for Westbank we may as well use this road here and bring it into our town. And for Kelowna, I think we'll have a junction just before the tunnel here, and we'll merge in somewhere in this area, and then the food freight trucks will just come down that way. So to start with, let's focus on Westbank. It's the closest one and should be the easiest to get connected in. So let's see here, shall we? So now, do we want to head up the hill and connecting up there? Or do we go down the hill and interfere with the trams? Let's just go down the hill, shall we? Well, that is making a little humpy bump, shall we say, in the road there. How about that? That looks better. It's less pronounced. So we'll have the connection there. What do we want now? We want an unload point, don't we? So we have our food requirements pretty much on the left hand side of the town as well, looking at it. And I think if we have the unload point just there, that has a decent catchment, and it also means we can have the trucks drive in a little loop there. Just to make sure they do that, we'll put a waypoint in. I think they will anyway, but just in case. So then we're going from here to here. Yes, they did take the loop off their own volition, so that's great. So normal sort of setup again. And the normal naming convention. Food delivery for Westbank. There we go. Let's get the vehicles running now. We'll go for 6 of those. Perfect. So now we can buy a train for the food delivery line, because there is some demand now that the trucks are running the line. So buy vehicles, locomotives. I'm going to say the Mikado once again. And we want the box cars this time around. And I'll go for 120 carrying capacity. And for the time being, I will say we'll go for 2 trains immediately. And they are going on the food freight line to Westbank. So now that that's all up and running, let's do the second delivery line into Kelowna. And as discussed, if we have a junction just before the bridge, that's not a bridge, that's a tunnel. Good going. And then we have a connection point just there. And then let's see, where do we want to be unloading this? Now I'm going to say we come down that way and then loop up that way. That should minimise the interaction between our food delivery line and our bus line. So once again, it's another new line from the cargo exchange to there, and then yep, you're going back by the waypoint anyway. And that's the food delivery line from Westbank to Kelowna. Let's just buy the vehicles here since it's in shot at the moment. Another 8 I think should be fine. And there's the colour scheme. And there's the line. Okie dokie, so we now have, even if all the trains aren't yet operational, but yes, we now have logs being produced, the logs being turned into planks at the sawmill, the planks being dropped down to Westbank, and then a road haulage fleet which is taking the planks to be turned into machines. At the moment the machines aren't being shipped out anywhere, but we can do that a little bit later on or in a future episode. What we also have done is a food line coming down from Chase into Westbank, and then once again 2 delivery lines, one for Westbank, one for Kelowna, and that'll start getting the food shipped down there to help some growth. we've unlocked another new plane, the Vickers Victoria. And I am toying with the idea of actually putting a quick airport down, maybe even in this episode. Obviously, in terms of our first airport, it's got to be Calgary, without a shadow of a doubt. The question is, where's the destination airport for now? Do we go somewhere like Revelstoke perhaps, if we can find the room? Or do we go all the way into British Columbia, perhaps Armstrong or Chase? Well, for a start, let's get our passenger airfield in Calgary. We may as well. So where do we want this? It needs to have good transport links. Now it can't quite fit in there. It could fit here, I think. No, let me or perhaps on the outskirts out here. Okay, that's going to remove a lot of buildings because of the flight path. How about if we have it up here? I tell you what, we'll come back to that. Simply because I want to make sure it's in a really good location, because ideally we want to have a really good transport system serving the airport. So that could be buses, metros, and or trains. So we want to make sure we get it right. Now if we had it up here, we could have a train from this spare line here, having a shuttle connection to the airport. We'd have plenty of opportunity to get a road connection in as well. So we could do that, but I think setting up our air freight and our air passengers is something that does deserve its own dedicated episodes. Perhaps in episode 32 is when we'll start venturing to the skies, and that gives me time off camera between episodes to experiment with the location of the airport, just to make sure, as I said, it's right first time and we don't have too many issues getting a good transport connection set up for it. Okay, so we still have trains awaiting to leave the depot. What we could do to ideally speed the process up a little is if we put some signals like, where can I get one, there and there, although that signal is sat on that train line, isn't it? Which is a little bit awkward. That won't be sat on the line as well. Okay, let's set it a little bit further back. Let's see. Perhaps there. Okay, we'll basically spam a few signals down at this point. And that should help bring our trains forward, because they now have an intermediate block before they get onto the main line. Okay, what's the hold up here? Okay, it's just the steel trains awaiting one another to pick up. Right, okay, I don't think that should be too much of a problem. At least I believe that's on one of our steel trains. Yes, it is, as is that. The trouble is it's holding everything else up at the moment, as we can see. All the way back to here. But this should start clearing pretty soon. But it might necessitate a little improvement in the future, where we could have a little parking section for some of our lines to allow them to bypass anything that's waiting to get on platforms, such as this steel train right here. Anyway, let's just leave that to sort itself out. It's not a major concern yet, but it's something we definitely want to keep an eye on, I think, and see if we can do a bit of manipulation with our junctions over there. Okay, let's just see if any of our logging trains have yet. Oh, just as I say that, the first one looks like it's arriving on platform now. I don't think a delivery has been made at this point. No. But our first one is just arrived at Seymour Arm. Now, it's only a short, relatively short, I should say, jaunt over to the sawmill, so this shouldn't make a great deal of money, especially when you compare it to, say, the Trans-Canadian Oil Line, which is making about 60 million per delivery. And in fact, I do think we have one of our oil trains caught up in the traffic. Yes, we do. Okay, so another quick thing we could get done today is we could start supplying Chase with some fuel. We have refined oil being shipped down here. Obviously, we have one of the trains on its way now. And we have the refined oil being taken from the station to the refinery. So I believe what we'll do is we'll get a unload point for Chase. The fuel is nicely grouped together right at the back of the town. So that makes it convenient and out of the way. And then we're going into Chase. This is orange. This is the usual setup. And we'll call this the fuel delivery line for Chase. There we go. So let's get some vehicles purchased for this. I think we can go fairly small here. I believe 4 will be enough for this. So you're doing fuel delivery, not fuel haulage. There we go. Now let's see. So they're using this platform here. So let's go to our line manager. Only the ones we can see. Fuel delivery. After River Street, you want to come back in this way onto the platform and then out. That's fine. You're doing the correct thing around here, as anticipated, which is good to see. So now we should actually start seeing production over here, especially when our fuel train gets in. Not fuel train, it's an oil train. When our oil train gets alongside. Not sure what he's waiting for. I guess these two might be sharing a yes, that's right. The coal and the oil share a platform, so that's why he's waiting there. That's fine. Has our train headed back? He's on his way, just to see how much money that makes, but he's not there just yet. So we'll come back to that. There's the second logging train. And I believe these are now our lumber trains making their way out as well. One thing we probably want to do is make sure our logging trains are diverted around the active platforms at our station. So let's do that now. So the lumber freight, on your way to Westbank, you want to go that way. And on your way back to Seymour Arm, to Sycamus, you're going that way. Okay. And then over here, you're going this way. And then you're coming back that way. And that's all correct. Oh no, we have one more here as well. So Sycamus, Enderby, and then Armstrong, you go there. And then the way back there. That's better. So as before, all we're doing there is just making sure our passenger platforms remain as uncluttered as possible to allow our passenger trains to get in and out as unhindered as possible. Fortuitous timing, our first delivery of logs is just about to be dropped off and delivered. Just waiting for clearance on the diamond switch, which the train now has. Let's just speed things along here just so we can get a rough idea as to what sort of income we can expect here. Just under £2 million, that's not bad at all. And in terms of expenses, so this line may not be the most profitable, but we could increase the length of the trains just to give them that little bit extra per run, just to make sure they do make us as much money as possible. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to draw an end to today's episode. We've got a lot of cargo work done, even if it was nothing overly major. Westbank and Kelowna will start seeing food shipments arriving. We have production of machinery, even if we have nowhere for the machines to go just yet. Likewise, we also have tools now being produced, in fact, because they will be able to draw some of the planks from this delivery as well. So both of those machinery and tools factories should now be activated. So in the future we want to decide how we're going to get them out and across our map. We set up the little Chase fuel delivery line as well. So we'll start seeing some profit from that soon. Although we haven't made a delivery yet, but hopefully in the not too distant future we shall. And we've also had a little look at where we want to put our first airports. As I said off camera between this episode and the next, I will have a little experiment and decide where the best locations are going to be. And then in episode 32, the next episode, is when I think we'll start dabbling with airports and have our first passenger lines set up in the air. They should be very profitable because it is a very large map, so they'll be covering a fair old distance. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, all that remains for me to say is, as always, take very good care of yourselves. It's ta-ta for now.